Rule 62 Studios in Bossier City, Louisiana, this is the Grouch and the Brainstorm. Welcome back. Episode 81, Matt.
Holy crap, 81.
Yeah. And if you hadn't noticed, I redid the numbering on them. So every single topic has the episode number.
Okay.
And we also did that on the website. So we can, people can find them easier. You know, we were talking before, you know, how do I send somebody to look at it? Well, now you can go, hey, go look at episode 11. I think somebody actually texted me and said that you had mentioned on an episode about your sponsor had did their story, right? And they texted me and said, what episode was that? And I could go back and pull up episode 11.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so this is episode 81. That's a lot of episodes.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, like, where have all the years gone?
Yeah. So anyway, intros. I'm Mike.
Hey, Mike. Oh.
Yeah. Hi, Mike. I'm here with Jill
Hey, guys.
and Matt.
I'm Matt, and I sat down at a Mexican restaurant the other day, and your sponsee walked up waiting on me and at the Mexican restaurant. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh.
And she didn't know who I was, but she walked up, and it clicked in my head that I know this person. And she said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so." And I went, "Hey, I'm Matt. I'm
Yeah.
can I get some chips?"
More
Oh, my
I
God.
almost blurted that out. It was so weird.
So besides eating at Mexican restaurants, what else you been up to, Matthew?
Work, man.
Working.
Just work.
We got to do that, don't we?
Yeah, I get up every day,
Well,
check the stock market,
yeah.
realize I don't have any in there.
I was like, wait,
and then
what?
I check the bank account, and it has a middle finger emoji when I look at the balance, and
Like you've been locked
just
out
go
permanently.
cut some more grass. That's what I do.
Yeah. Everything else good?
Everything's good.
Kids all hanging in there?
Everybody's hanging in there. Had a few birthdays this week doing that deal, and I got to speak at a thing Saturday.
Yes,
I'm gonna
you
go
do.
check that out. So
Got
that'll be.
Sweet Tooth auction over in Rusty.
I was
Yeah.
in the central office yesterday and talking to the ladies. I went in there to get something, and they had the flyer up on the wall, and I was just looking at the other stuff. And I said, "Hey, y'all," and I pointed at mine. They didn't know it was me. And I said, "That dude right there will put you to sleep." I
Oh,
was
my God,
If you haven't
stop.
had a nap, go over there and listen to that
I
guy.
hope they have crowd control out there.
But yeah, more like animal control.
Well, that too. They bring out the.
In my situation,
Remember in old school where Will Ferrell accidentally shot himself in the neck with
darted
a
him.
tranquilizer dart?
Darted him. I love the guy that they brought to bring out those ponies was one of the most
Stifler.
savage. Yeah.
He played Stifler.
And he's like, if they get out of line, I get to shoot them with this. Good Lord.
Yeah, hopefully they'll have some of those to control the crowd with. And so, Jill, what you been up to?
Well, you know, work as usual. Trying to rehabilitate my finger. Not much is going on with it. It still can't move too well. I annihilated a snake this past week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And in 2 days is the old belly button.
49.
Yeah.
49 of them.
Yeah.
1949, the year you were born. Oh. BC.
You know.
No, I'm gonna be a big 49.
Yeah, that's crazy,
start
huh?
planning the 50 party right
Yeah.
after
I mean,
that.
like, you know, I have a, AARP booth.
Well, I've been getting that stuff since I was 35 years old.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
For real?
yeah.
Oh.
Man, I was just sitting somewhere and this lady walked in. I was working there, this young lady, and she said something to me about, you probably have kids my age. And I was like, how old do you think I am? And she
really?
looked at me and then I said, how old are you? And she goes, 22. And I said, yeah, I got two kids your age. My bad.
back that
in.
Okay, I'm old. My bad on that.
Never mind. We'll take that.
I thought it was a
back.
burn at first, and it was actual fact. So
Yeah, man. So besides just working and sleeping and eating and the normal things, I have I'm telling you, I'm gonna tell this story. So I'm sitting there one night. I told Jill earlier, and I was sitting in my chair reading. I read on an iPad, right? So, provided I have it turned to the right settings, I get my text messages pop on my iPad. So, and you know, sobriety farthest thing from my mind when I'm sitting there reading a book. I'm just not thinking about sobriety 24/7. I'm sober, you know, and all of a sudden I get a text message from someone I haven't talked to in a long time. And basically it's maybe once a year, happy birthday or happy sobriety day or, congratulations or whatever. And I get a text message, and they were talking about how they listen to our show. And someone that does not go to the Koala Club, not an alcoholic, but they listen to our show, and I appreciated it. I thank you very much. I love it when people listen to the show, and hey, I spread the word. If you know anybody who has a family member who has a problem, or if you know somebody that has a actual problem, send them on our way. But that was pretty cool. But what was even cooler is, like, I don't know, 8 to 10 minutes later, Chris C calls me. He don't ever call me. And he's like, he had ran into a guy in a store that had only been to the Koala Club one time years ago. And the guy, I guess the guy still drinks, right? And he still drinks, and he runs into Chris, and Chris is telling him how he got sober. And the guy's like, well, I went to the Koala Club one time, and the only person he remembered from the whole club was me. So that was weird.
Yeah.
So, that's why Chris called me to tell me.
I would have said Phil for sure.
Well,
everybody remembers Phil.
Well, I'm thinking it might have been the day I didn't wear clothes.
That's an attention getter.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Ladies, talk about crowd control.
Well, here's the deal. It was somebody's birthday.
Hello, girls.
I didn't know you wasn't supposed to wear a suit, right? So, hello, girls.
Isn't that weird how this works, though? And like you cross paths with people, and
But to hear from two people that I haven't heard, don't hear from much, and haven't heard from in a long time, in one sitting, right? And all of a sudden, that takes me back to a time, whenever because the first person that texted me about coming to or listening to the show, I'm sorry, knew me in my active alcoholism. Right now, me and Matt and Jill, we go to the same meetings sometimes. We belong to the same club. We have never seen each other in our active addictions. Never. Like, I've never seen Jill doing anything, and never seen Matt, and vice versa. Right now, there could have been a chance I'd have seen Matt because he has a few, and there could have been a chance Jill could have seen me because she has a year more than me. But we never seen each other in that. In our active addiction or alcoholism. And so it reminded me of a time whenever I was trying to decide whether or not I was an alcoholic.
Okay.
And, the original podcast that I had planned for today was going to be called Commitment, right? Mm-hmm. But why in the hell would somebody who doesn't know if they're an alcoholic commit to anything? Right?
Good question.
The commitment part comes after the fact. You have to make up your mind, Matt. You have to decide, I'm an alcoholic. Now, that is one thing I can tell you, that you can go to any club in the world, no matter what. You can sit down at an open meeting. You can share, right? But nobody in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting is going to tell you you're an alcoholic at all. You have to tell yourself.
Self-diagnosis.
It is It says it in the big book. It's a self-diagnosed thing. And I had this period of life where I would feel god awful. I mean, just physically, I would feel bad. Mentally, just completely strapped. I would be out for 18, 19 hours and wake up, and I had almost these vivid dreams that I had gone places and done things, and I didn't even know if I had, or talked to people. I would go through my phone records to check and see if I had called or texted somebody in there, and because my drunk hind would delete all my texts before I passed out for some reason. I had no clue who I talked to.
Never happened, Mike. Never happened.
Well, convincing myself it didn't happen, right?
Isn't it funny in the big book too? You get that, you make those calls the next day. The checking to see what you did, like, hey, buddy,
Oh.
I mean,
because you don't know if you did it or you didn't.
Yeah.
It's like, did you drop me off last night?
So did I have clothes when you dropped me off? Was I wearing them or no? Because I'm not now. So,
well, here's the deal. Like, a lot of people back then, I was close to them, right? And they were friends of mine. and I would come to, and I would pray to God I hadn't hurt them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, emotionally or physically, have I done anything to this particular person that would make them hate me forever?
Yeah.
And you don't want to. You're scared to call them and ask them. You're scared to text them and ask. You don't want to know. You really, I didn't. I just deep down inside did not want to know. And so, you know, but I hadn't decided I was an alcoholic. All this is going on. I'm still not a clue if I'm an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. So big things, like, well, not big things. At first, little things would go missing, right? Like the wife and the kids. And then as it got worse, big things would go missing, like January and February.
Oh, okay. I was like, how much paper?
The
can you get?
80s.
Well, Matt, well, that's Matt, you know. I mean, so I'm going to read this. I'm going to read the entire first paragraph of We Agnostics, because after you get out of We Agnostics, right, or this first paragraph, you actually start with the spiritual part of this program, right? But We Agnostics is chapter 4. It comes after Bill's story. It comes after more about alcoholism. It comes after a lot of stuff, right? And I should know those books by heart, but I don't. So
How it works?
Well, no. Well, you start out with more about alcohol. You start out with Bill's story, and then you move on to more.
Don't ask me.
Well, okay. Bill's story, more about alcohol. Bill's story, more about alcoholism. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank.
And that's okay. So you were saying...
I was saying I really need to know this stuff because it's bugging the hell out of me. So I'm going to look. You start out with Bill's story, then there is a solution. Then more about alcoholism, then We Agnostics.
Okay.
And the reason it was so important for me to get that right is because there's a reason why these different chapters are where they are. Right?
Agreed.
So, and then you go on to the other parts of the book. First paragraph. In the preceding chapters, you have learned something of alcoholism. We hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. So if you're trying to decide, read those first 3 chapters. That might help you a little bit. It might not do anything for you because a lot of times we wiggle our way out of those. We haven't got there yet. So anyway, if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you're probably alcoholic.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay. If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience can conquer, or will conquer. I'm sorry. So here it is. If you find that you honestly want to, but you cannot stop, or when you start, you can't stop, you might be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so it's not about the quantity. It's not about how often you drink. It's not about what you drink, because if we read those first 3 chapters, we're going to find out we switched from wine to beer, or from liquor to wine, or from liquor to beer, or and all we did was just, the liquid that we mixed our alcohol with has changed, but the alcoholic part hasn't changed.
Yeah.
So I guess what we really need to talk about before we talk about commitment, right, is, Matt, what do you think an alcoholic is?
Well, and you sort of read it in kind of the way I look at it, but I do have people ask me, hey, my brother's this, or my cousin's like this, and how do we know if he's an alcoholic? And I go, well, number one, just what you just said, he's got to figure that out for himself, and that's the whole name of the game. And when we can figure that out, then we can deal with it when we figure out we have it. But we've got to admit and decide if we do. I know a lot of people that are quote hard drinkers. They're not alcoholics, so that they're borderline. It could probably be down the road for them if they kept on. But I know people like that all my life that I wouldn't call them an alcoholic necessarily. But for me, it was always as simple as, if I take a drink and I get ready to drink, can I say, I'm going to tell you the outcome? I'm going to have 3 drinks. I'm going to go home, cook dinner. No, I would say that,
Yeah.
But I would have 100 drinks. I'd go to jail. 3 months later, I'd get home and then dinner was burnt. You know what I mean? That was it in a nutshell for me. It never, I never was able to control my drinking, to any type of, I mean, just not at all. I was never that way from the first drink I took. I was never able to control it. And it always became a thing of, I need to make sure I have more of this stuff around because I don't want to run out. And I got introduced to other things as life went on, and they aided. They were party favors with the drinking. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But it always started with alcohol. And, I know a lot of people, I talk to sponsees and they have a hard time with step one. They don't want to admit, and I'm not there to make them admit. It's there for them to decide. That was a step that I just didn't have any problem with. I knew where I was at when I got there because there was nothing left. There was nothing for me to point to and say, oh, but I still have this. I was done. I had no relationships with people. In every facet of my life was just destruction. And so I'm kind of grateful for that I got to that point. And I talked to a lady the other day, and she said she had gone to rehab like 6 times. And she said, you're one of those lucky ones that got it on the first time. And I said, I don't know if I am lucky. I'm grateful for that. But at the same time, by the time I got there, I couldn't have gone another time. Like I was fixing to die. So it was death or do that. And there was not much option left at that point. So I never had the issue of figuring out, was I powerless over alcohol? But I think people out there question it. I get asked that probably more than anything. When people find out I'm in recovery, that's the number one question. I wonder if I'm an alcoholic, you know, and 95% of the people out there probably are not. And, you know.
Yeah. And if you have to ask yourself, am I an alcoholic? You might.
Yeah.
Be a redneck.
No, but I mean, like, if you're questioning that,
No offense, Matt.
There might be a problem. You know, to me, you know, alcoholism is, well, it's ingesting a substance that negatively impairs your daily living. You know, is it affecting your emotional health, your spiritual health, your physical health? And is it affecting other aspects of your life, like relationships, finances, and whatnot? Can you get up and go to work? You know, it's just looking at all those different factors. You know, there is a CAGE questionnaire that is a really, really popular screening tool, and it asks just 4 questions because it's CAGE as in the acronym. C stands for, are you trying to cut down or control your use? Mm-hmm. You know, are you trying to drink less in hopes that, you know, you're not an alcoholic, or you're trying to prove something to yourself? The A stands for, do people get annoyed by your drinking? Do you have complaints about that? I know I had a lot of complaints. The G stands for, do you feel guilty about your drinking or what may happen while you're drunk, or what you say or what you do? And the E stands for the CAGE questionnaire. Do you ever drink as an eye opener? And this is interesting. You know, a lot of people do have to drink throughout the night, and it's the first thing they do in the morning, but that wasn't my case. And that's why I was convinced I wasn't an alcoholic. I did not have to get up in the morning and drink. However, I did get up in the morning and take a handful of pills, Xanax, opioids, whatever that may be, muscle relaxers. But like, I always had pills, but every day at 3, I drank.
Yeah.
And I drank till I passed out. And I did that every single day, but that had me convinced I'm not an alcoholic. You see, I don't have to get up. And I remember having friends that drank when they got up, and I thought, damn, they're an alcoholic. And so those are some questions you can ask yourself. How is this affecting me? Because I think normal people, they have a drink and they can stop.
Yeah.
For us, I didn't have an off switch. My off switch is like just totally passed out.
Well, I'm going to go back to a couple, 10 episodes ago where I said, and Judy actually has volunteered to come on as a non-alcoholic.
Okay.
And talk about what it's like to have a beer with dinner. Okay.
Or half a beer.
And by the way, if you're out there listening to this and that doesn't make sense, we want you to keep listening. However, so there's this show I watch on Paramount Plus, and I only watch it generally while I'm doing other things around the house. I just kind of turn it on my iPad and let it sit there or put it on the computer while I'm editing. And
Okay, because I was like aerobics.
the old Richard Simmons aerobics.
By the way, I was in a meeting yesterday with a guy who looks like
Jazzercise.
Bob Ross. I'm just saying.
I seen a Bobby E lookalike in a meeting today. So
Really?
yeah, but
Sorry.
on Paramount Plus they have it's called FBI True, is the name of the show, and it's FBI agents sit around and talk about their cases, right?
Okay.
Well, they all drink beer, and they all have this glass of beer that they get draft, obviously, and from the first of the show to the end of the show, we're talking 21 minutes of airtime. That beer does not get drank.
And gets hot.
Ew.
And you're like,
Yeah.
what the hell is wrong with you? Why even have a beer? Like,
Is it decoration?
it is a show.
Do they drink?
I've never seen them actually drink out of it. They do toast each other, which
Yeah.
which is kind of a primitive act. I don't really understand the whole toasting thing, but that beer stays exactly like that. Or I've gone to restaurants and I've seen people order a margarita, right? A margarita, one, and then they drink like 2 or 3, half of it. What's the point?
I don't know.
That is not me. That is not. But back to your point, the cage method is great. But if anything is causing a problem in my life, right? Anything, I don't care if it's Snickers.
Right? Well, yeah.
Even though it's an unhealthy food, I don't recommend it.
Can still be addictive.
But if you are eating so much Snickers that it's affecting other aspects of your life, at first it's just, hey, nobody notices the $30 a week I'm spending on Snickers, to you're sitting in front of a group of people saying, yeah, I stole my kid's Halloween candy. I feel so guilty, Mm-hmm. I mean, but it's a problem because it's just something we talk about and it is affecting us in some way.
Yeah.
And I live in a household where a member of that household drinks to the point of where, let's just say they have to go to the hospital or the doctor, there's probably something going on. At least look into the first 3 chapters of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Read those. Bill's story might bore you, right? It's a story,
very much so.
It's a story of a dude, right? When you really get in AA and you make that commitment, there's a ton of information in Bill's story. But if you're just an outsider trying to figure out things,
Or a newcomer.
you there's not a whole lot of information in there for you, right? Or a newcomer.
I mean, it's like blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but when you actually get into it, but that's, but man, what is an alcoholic? I'm going to tell you now, growing up, I thought an alcoholic was that relative that I had that drank all day, every day, and got a little mean when he was drinking or she was drinking. The guy that lived under the bridge or had a paper bag or sat outside the store, asked for money. My mother had to tell me that one of the TV characters on the show that we watched in real life was an alcoholic. And I'm like, no way. There's no way that guy's an alcoholic, Mom. He can't be an alcoholic. And he's a real live alcoholic. Had to have a liver transplant. So, and I'm talking about Larry Hagman, J.R. Ewing.
Yep.
And so alcoholics don't look any special way, right? So, man, it's there's so much information in More About Alcoholism, which we did do a show on that, but we have never done this topic, actually. We've never talked about what is an alcoholic.
Yeah. I think if you're, there's lots of ways to get sober. We don't knock any of them, man. Whatever worked for everybody, but we all came through Alcoholics Anonymous. It's worked for us. I've seen it work for a bunch of other people. And if you're struggling with, I'm stopping drinking, I need to figure this out, go sit in a few meetings. You don't have to speak to anybody. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to talk during the meeting, and listen to some of those folks talk that are in there and compare where you're at with where they were at or are currently at. And for me, that was the biggest thing, to get around people. And I started hearing how they were, and they had been because they had years of sobriety. And I looked at them and I went, well, the story doesn't match the picture of the person. That guy or lady does not look like she would do that.
Oh yeah.
And I went, there's no way this person. I mean, they're talking about wild stuff.
Remind me of Lisa that's on the show so often. When you hear some of her escapades,
She's tough, man.
she's a tough cookie.
She's tough. I talked to her last night on the phone. As a matter of fact, she called
Can't
me.
imagine someone being as tough as her. Right, and struggling with alcoholism.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what race, gender, none of that matters. Profession, I mean, the guy sitting here, Mike Walston, I am 100% an alcoholic.
Yep.
And I don't think anybody that knew me before I got sober would ever doubt that.
For sure.
There
Right,
may be
right.
people out there who listen to the show that aren't alcoholics and that know me, and they'll be like, I just can't imagine it. I just can't imagine it. And I'm like, well, it's just
That
pure-
is funny how that shifts. I mean, because there's so many people that I know that can't imagine me sober
And before
at all.
Yeah. And before
Like,
before
please.
I went in, I'm in there going, hey guys, I think I'm an alcoholic. And everybody in my life's like, no crap.
Yeah, same here.
And now I meet people and I'm friends with them and they don't even know anything about that. And they're like, man, I just can't see. And I'm like, oh, believe me, it happened.
At my
trust me.
job,
Yeah.
I was like, do not judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Please don't.
Well, I remember being kind of relieved to find out I was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
and
There's
that-
something, there's something I can do here.
Well, I thought my alcoholism had taken, because alcohol, when you are in my level of alcoholism where I was when I quit, it affects the way you think when you're sober. And when I say sober, I mean completely void of physical alcohol, right? It affects the way you think then. You can't even, you still have to get through the fog after that. So, bad decisions one after the next, restless, irritable, and discontented.
All the negative emotions.
all the time.
That's the tough part. That's what I was getting to, and I'm glad you said that. Like, I think people early on, and that's why I suggest the meetings. Get around folks that have done this, that have been through that initial jack up. I don't know what you want to call it. Just mix and bowl of horrible emotions, physical feeling bad, mistakes we made, things, guilt, all those things. There's a way to get through those. And that's what we figured out. All those people sitting in that room, they did figure out how to get the drinking stopped, but they figured out how to go on with life without drinking anymore. And that was the trick to the deal. And that's what I came in there to figure out. But it is so tough initially. I'm on Instagram and those people put those, I've been sober 1 day, I've been sober 2 days. Dude, I love that. Man, I love that. It's a damn fight, and every one of those days is a fight, And I don't have that many fighting days anymore, and I'm glad for that, and I'm grateful for that.
You have done the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that mostly, well, I'm not going to say there's one of them is not more important than the other, but step 12 is a continuation of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1.
Yep.
2, 3, 4, 5. You see, so step 12 is where we continue. We're doing this thing over and over and over for years, and that's where we cease fighting anything and everything. Like we just
Thank God. Thank God.
there is no fight. There's no white knuckling it these days. We don't.
Yeah.
There's no. I don't know about you two or anybody else. I don't crave it. I don't think about it. I think about alcohol really whenever I'm in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, because I hear people talking about it and it reminds me of the day. And I think about it when we're doing this podcast. But to be quite honest with you, I just do not think about it.
I never have good memories when it comes to all of that.
We do come on here and we tell some funny stuff every once in a while. We did, but if you play that all the way through, it did not end well. And well, I say it didn't end well. It ended well because we're back on track. But that led
over.
to exactly. And I sat in a meeting last night, and it was a very small, and it was a mixed group of sobriety, but most of it real early sobriety. And we were the thing we were talking about, and I was listening to the guys talking, and it was all growth. Everything they were saying was there was some growth in their behavior. It wasn't about, none of them talked about drinking or using, but all the way down the line, and they were at different stages of it. You know, you could tell listening to them that they were moving further along with the steps, and some of them were 90 days, you know, and they're like, my old lady was ticking me off, but I just closed my mouth and I walked away. And I'm like, that's a miracle, bro. Like I still have to do that. I'm sick. How'd you figure that out in 90 days? You know, but like that stuff's growth. That's how we start to get better. We learn to change behaviors. And
I'm going to draw one up on you. So, cause you don't want that crap building up so that at 180 days you blow up on her either.
And that was exactly what we talked about. And I said,
so you talked to somebody.
We did.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And,
well, we can't afford to suppress, regress, create that emotional installation, because that is what we've been doing for so long.
Yeah.
And that's what meetings are for.
Yeah. Meetings are, I mean, it's a good place to where if you don't want to, I wouldn't say necessarily airing our dirty laundry. We have a sponsor, and we have like sponsee brothers and sisters, and like anybody, if this is what's going on, we can talk to them. And, I was at the noon meeting today at the Koala Club. I went up there and I had to take a couple calls. So I dropped by the club, and I sat in on the noon meeting. And, the noon meeting was about adopting a higher power, and have we adopted a higher power? And it talks about, mainly step, 3 and 11, 7, the ones that mention God. And so, I guess my in our understanding of God, and I'm not going to pretend to understand God.
No shit.
When I got to AA, I thought I understood God. I did, and so here it is, a few years down the line, over a decade, and I understand that God's will and my will may not ever align. So if I'm going to be happy, I'm going to have to align to God's will. So if you're not an alcoholic and something, you're going through some really bad stuff, I would sit back and say, hey, how am I going to handle the outcome of whatever happens? Because whatever happens is whatever's supposed to happen.
Exactly.
And how am I going to do that? And at that point, I remembered, hey, God got me sober. God got me through the hardest thing in my life. That's the worst thing. I couldn't get sober. And he got me there. He got me through it. I've got to align to his will, whether I like the outcome of this or not. And, in the beginning of recovery, it was about, relationships, or it was about a vehicle, or of something financial or something, and now all these years down the line, there's health issues, and there's big things that really matter. The rest of the stuff, who gives a damn, right? It just really don't matter.
Lacey and I were talking, and she said, I just have a big heart and I take on the other people's stuff, and I said, I did that for a long time. And I said, I finally learned I want to help people if they want to help themselves, but I have to keep my own sobriety and my own serenity. And, I learned to navigate that as I went along and go, I just have to do that for my own peace of mind, because if I can't keep mine, I can't help anybody else, and it's kind of a weird thing as we go along. Listen to those guys last night, and some of them talking, and we did talk about that too, about that's what I told. They do crosstalk in this particular meeting. It's actually a crosstalk meeting, but we sat around talking about that, and I said, my problem was I was learning to shut my mouth, but then just tamp it down, and it's a powder keg. And I had to learn the second part of that was how to get that out in a way that I didn't look like a crazy idiot to the person that I cared about, or now if it was somebody that didn't really, somebody off the street that I was going to pass one time, I just need to let that go. But if I have a relationship with that person, I need to be able to, both of us be able to sit down and figure out and work that out amongst ourselves without, the old ways of doing things.
Well, and it always becomes a one-up, and who's right and who's wrong. And in the end, there's not a winner. That Alcohol fuels a lot of that as well whenever we're actively drinking.
Oh yeah, the ego takes over.
And then inhibitions drop.
Right.
I don't give a damn if you leave me or not.
Yeah.
You know, and at that point, you really don't.
Yeah, but then you wake up.
Then you sober up and you don't have anything, you know, trying to call everybody and find out where they went. Where'd y'all go?
Why am I behind this dumpster? You know,
So, you know, really.
what did I tell y'all last night?
Where did this sombrero come from?
Yeah.
So, you know, but you think about it though, a regular, average, ordinary person, they have a problem with their air conditioner, right? And so you have an air conditioner problem and you're going to get help getting your air conditioner fixed, right?
Yes.
Or if you have car problems, you know, you're not going to not do anything about it thinking it's going to fix itself. You have an alcohol problem, for some reason, miraculously, it's going to fix itself.
That is, I mean, because we're justifying, we have reasons why, or it's not a problem. And I think that's just like what kept us out there for so long.
This is why I drink. You know what I mean? This is the only does it really matter because you're still drinking?
Yeah.
You know, you can go buy, she left you 8 years ago. It's time to sober up.
I don't think I've told this one, but
gotta hear this.
I was less than a year. Less than a year sober, okay? Don't follow my example on anything. Sobriety, I don't do, I'm not an example to anybody, but this is what I did. And I did check with my sponsor. A friend calls me and he says, my neighbor across the street lives in a very upscale neighborhood. He said it's an older man, older woman. They're both drink. They're fighting like cats and dogs. Will you go talk to this guy? Maybe you can get him to stop drinking. And I'm like 9 months sober. I'm like, I got this.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
here we go.
I got Bill
God.
W in one pocket, Dr. Bob in the other one. I called my sponsor. I was like, hey, can you meet me over there and talk to this guy? He goes, you'll be all right. Just go over there.
Did
Like
he
a lamb
really?
to the slaughter, you know? So I get over there and it's a beautiful home, $1 million home, okay? On a golf course. There are mice running all over this house the whole time we're talking. Like I'm holding my feet up in the air. It was freaking me out, man.
Yeah, it freaked me out too.
Oh boy, it didn't bother him. So I go in and his wife goes in the bedroom and he's sitting in the living room with me.
Obviously, it didn't bother his wife.
It didn't bother neither one of them at all. But he's like, I'm like, hey, you know, my
Salamanders will get them.
your neighbor wanted me to talk to you. You know, I'm up. You want to get some help? Of course, he knew everybody at the Koala Club more than I did because he'd been there a million times. And he's like, man, you're wasting your time. And then he's screaming down the hall, I wouldn't drink if it wasn't for that B word,
Yeah.
and just screams it at her. So she's screaming back, and I'm going,
God
I'm. What am I doing here? And you know, he used that. That was his rationalization in his mind for, well, if I get rid of her, that's what he kept telling me. If she just get out of here, I wouldn't even have a drink.
Problems
You know,
would be solved.
sure.
What about that person who just likes to drink? You know?
I got some of them too, and they like it so much they.
But I mean, like
Go to
after a
jail
while, do you really? And that's what
I didn't like to drink, but I sure like the feeling that I got
right.
when I
mean,
drank.
I think after a long time, I fooled myself because you wake up the next morning, you have a headache, you're dry heaving, you're going through withdrawals. Is that
shaking.
a good time?
No,
No.
I never enjoyed that. Have you ever detoxed yourself?
Oh,
Yes.
I've done that a bunch.
Yeah, I've done it. I've done it.
So
plenty.
much is ridiculous.
Wrapped up in a blanket and turn the heat up all the way and just shake it until you're covered in sweat and so that. But I'm not painting the picture of the perfect alcoholic because you don't have to be that bad either to be an alcoholic.
You're right.
Right. And then you go to a treatment center, which I did many times, and you have the alcohol abuser. Then you have the person that's dependent on alcohol. You know, then you have the person that just uses alcohol to cope every day, but could actually stop. You know, there's a lot of different people you meet, and especially technical terms you hear in a treatment center that kind of, I don't know, my first 4 or 5 times going to Brentwood, I was diagnosed by a psychiatrist, okay, as alcohol abuser. You're right. That's the way they diagnosed me. The 6th time and last, and I'm talking inpatient, outpatient, different ARC, all kind of different treatments. The sixth time, the guy actually diagnosed me as alcohol dependent, and that pissed me off because how dare you say I'm dependent on anything?
You were having withdrawals, weren't you?
Oh, I was having withdrawals all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Withdrawals from alcohol. I was having seizures. Well, I had a seizure. And I stayed in the hospital quite a few days and did all the whole put you through a tube and look at your brain and all that stuff. And in the end, basically, the doctor said that, he told me that the alcohol leaves your system. You drink so much that it's taken over the saline in your brain that sends the electric whatever currents, and that you took everything out. Your brain didn't know what to do. You flipped out, right?
Yeah.
All I heard was don't ever let alcohol be out of your brain.
Oh, God.
That's what I heard.
An alcoholic prescription right there. I got you, boss. No problem.
I went
thirsty
back.
now.
I went back after that and probably tied it on another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drinking way more and till June 21st of 2011, where it came to a point where the only way I was going to beat alcoholism was to die. But yet I don't know if I'm an alcoholic, Jill.
I was there. Isn't that just so crazy what we know now looking back?
And I
and you
remember,
know what? At that point, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with me.
It was so bad I had to go to AA. That's like, I saw a meme today on Instagram that said, imagine drinking so much you have to sit around in a circle of people and talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll volunteer as tribute, I mean.
And too, talking about the withdrawals and those things, and people are different levels of the physical is what I'm talking about part. If you're in that situation, strongly medically, you need to look at getting detox. A medical staff, yes,
absolutely.
professional.
Yes, alcohol withdrawals can be fatal.
Dangerous to do that.
I had no idea I could have passed away whenever I was going through all those withdrawals all those times. I had no idea how dangerous it was until I got sober.
I worked in a treatment center, and we handled the clients, the male clients, when they come in the door till they leave the door. And alcohol was probably the worst I saw people come off of all of it. And it would take those guys a while to just get where they were coming around, so don't underestimate that. I mean, we don't want anybody to think, oh, I'll go sleep on the couch for a couple of days.
It can be incredibly lethal.
Because I had a friend in Mobile, Alabama, and her sister locked her in the apartment and went to work trying to keep her from alcohol. So she climbed out the window of the second floor apartment, detoxing, falls down the stairs, brain swole up, and she died. So there's that. We went to the funeral for that in Mississippi, but it's very, very serious. Yeah. And, strongly suggest. And plus, you just don't want to be there by yourself or with someone that doesn't understand what you're up against. That's just making it that much harder on yourself.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, typically at that point, you've isolated. God, you've shut everybody out. And I remember that. Last thing I want is people around me.
Well, there's another one, that I'm thinking, because we're talking about, am I an alcoholic? If your friends and relatives and the people that love you and that you love are talking about you and your drinking and how it's too much, you might just need to say, hey, let me look into something, right? Because most of us are going to say, they don't know what they're talking about. I drink 2 12-packs a day. My grandpa used to, comparison is the thief of joy. I say again, you can't, because there is no comparison, a shot may be something completely do different on your body than it does on mine, right? Mm-hmm. So alcohol is going to treat every single person a little bit different when it comes to the reaction. It may not take as much, I mean, for me, it was a huge amount of vodka every day, and the average person it would kill.
Yep.
It would just, that much vodka would not, they couldn't live through that. And, and that was after years and years of drinking, building it up.
My brothers,
tolerance.
My brothers came up, and I was in my mid-20s. I didn't get sober till I was 38. and we went and played golf one day, and they were talking about it years later after I got out of treatment, and they were like, you know, it's one thing to have a few beers on the golf course, but they're like, you pull out this Ziploc bag, not in a prescription bottle, and it's just all these colored pills in there, and there was 30 something pills, and he goes, by the end of the 18 holes, those were gone, and so was the beer. And I was like, yeah, and they're going, but you're still standing, you know. And I said, somewhat, you know, and I probably drove home. That's what's so bad. But,
Right.
There's the obvious alcoholics, man.
yeah.
And
I didn't have a problem with step one, guys. None. I was all in when I got there.
yeah,
So.
there's that person that you go out to. Let's just say you go out to dinner and you don't notice how much they're drinking until they start getting belligerent, and then you realize, hey, and you know, and if it happens more than once or twice, you know, there might be something going on there, you know.
Sure.
But we're not going to be able to diagnose you. I
No,
can't.
that's not what we're here for.
I have a friend of mine, and I consider him a close friend because he was one of my work colleagues, pretty close, worked every day together, right? And he asked me, do you think I'm an alcoholic? And I was like, well, you know, do you think you're an alcoholic? And I hate to answer a question with a question, but I said, what you got for me, man? You can give me some data, you know? And he told me about his drinking, right? And I said, well, when you try to stop, can you? And he's like, oh, yeah. And I was like, well, what's the, why would you try to stop? You know, what's the problem here? You know, tell me. And he gave me his scenario. How often do you drink? Oh, I drink once a year, you know, but when he does, he gets violently drunk, you know, so don't drink once a year. Can you skip next year and let's get back with me and let me know how that turns out? Let's see what happens, right? You know, it's just so different, you know, that, and the big book always talks about the real alcoholic. Have you ever noticed that? Even right here in the page I'm turned to, despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe they are in that class. Okay? So you're not going to believe you're an alcoholic. By every form of self-deception and experimentation, they will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule, therefore non-alcoholic. Yeah, I mean, if I could if I could get a hand raised from everybody out there in the audience, I'd probably see at least 146 hands because that's how many members we have.
Oh, okay.
Or how many followers we have. I don't know. You know, I thought about it the other day. The reason we might not have but 146 followers, but we get so many listens is somebody might not want to be stigmatized by a follower of a sobriety podcast, though.
Could be.
Yeah,
Could
you
be.
might not. Your name don't show up anywhere on our stuff, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, before I forget, we got Russia. Is somebody in Russia is listening to the show?
Probably one of my cousins or something. I don't
Welcome.
know, you know, yeah, no,
Yeah, probably somebody I used to buy vodka from back in the day, wanting to make sure I'm really sober.
They got the actual vodka over there, huh?
They got the good,
real stuff.
the real stuff, man. Made out of, I think you can make vodka out of just about anything: tree limbs, leaves, grass, pine straw. I don't know, but it's pretty. You make it out of potatoes. Think about it. The same thing you make French fries and chips, you can make vodka.
I was in treatment with a dude said he smoked green beans in jail and caught a buzz on it. Took them out of his lunch and put them in the window, let them dry out, and I don't know the truth to that. You know, thank God I never got to the green bean smoking level.
Man,
But
when you get
I was headed there.
Or smoking coffee.
Yeah.
Smoking coffee.
That's a big thing where I am. Yep.
Yeah. Well, what's it do? Give 'em the
Stimulates you.
poops. Can't go to the bathroom so bad they can't smoke it.
And jail's probably not the place you want to really have to poop a lot. You know what I mean? That's
I can
probably
imagine. I'm guessing it's not a good pooping
not a
facility.
good environment there.
No, you get to do it in front of everybody.
Really?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. There's no doors. It's right there in front of everyone.
Do you see people doing that?
No, I can't. I don't go into the dorms
Me either.
because of PREA laws.
You can't go on the jail, the
No.
housing.
I know I don't go into any of the dorms because of PREA laws.
Okay, I got you.
Well, I can tell you, man, that going in front of everybody is something you'd have to get used to.
Oh,
You know, and also in the big book, it says, to be gravely affected, one does not necessarily have to drink a long time nor take the quantity some of us have.
yeah. I mean, I was out there for a really long time, 20 plus years. And I had a girlfriend in treatment that was only out there for 5 years, drinking. And she was having grand mal seizures, drinking Dr. Tishner's, rubbing alcohol when she couldn't have her, her alcohol.
If I'm not mistaken, that'll make you go blind.
She was not okay.
Yeah.
She was hallucinating in a hospital.
I think it builds up in your
But
system.
it only took her 5 years to reach that point of, like I said, grand mal seizures.
I mean, I don't think anybody I've ever seen come into the rooms of AA and stay that says, I've seen one or two, obviously, but they say, my name is whatever, and I'm an alcoholic, and then they go through the process, they commit to it, they work the steps, they get sober, and I know it happens, but people decide, hey, I'm not an alcoholic. I've never seen that happen where somebody didn't come back eventually and say, oh, might have misjudged that, so I don't know. I was homicidal, suicidal, all these different things. I thought I was going crazy. I honestly thought you got to think you're going crazy when you wake up feeling like this every single day and you keep doing what got you there over and over again. You think you're losing your mind for your behavior to reflect that way. And then I get to AA and I listen to people and I read the stories in the back of the book, which I strongly suggest because you have every level, every gender, every race. Even you have stories from people that have different orientations. You have all of these different people in our society telling their story. There's no way if you're an alcoholic, you can't relate to that somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Right? And so, they encourage people in the big book, hey, read some of our personal stories and see what you see.
Right? I really like the stories.
I like the stories, too.
A lot.
I didn't at first.
I think my favorite, even this podcast, my favorite part is the stories when people come in here and we get to hear them, and anything like that. I love hearing speakers and just hear how people got through. And it's weird how, it could be some elderly lady speaking and I go, oh, I was kind of like that, and it doesn't really, the outside cover doesn't really matter, but
it's almost like we have the same story.
The big book says the fact is most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, this was in the 30s, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We're unable at certain times, to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. Right?
Yep.
And the thing is, let's just say we're an alcoholic, but we don't know. And so we're going to quit. And we find ourselves talking ourselves back into drinking within a week or two. Right? That is a really good sign that there's probably some alcoholism there, because it ain't like you're going to just automatically wake up one day and go, oh my gosh, I have a beer in my hand. I better open it. No, you end up talking yourself into it. It's kind of like if I go, and I'm not a great example of this because I eat one time every day around 11 a.m. and that's it. But if I go a week without eating anything, right? Because I want to go a month without eating for, let's just say I'm fasting or something, which I don't do, by the way. I don't fast or any of that stuff.
Me either.
No.
Well, we just talked about the Mexican restaurant.
I'm anti-fasting.
But after a week into this month-long commitment, which I go back to commitment because we are going to talk about that next time, after Carol tells her story. So we have this episode, then we'll have... Is it Karen? Karen tells her story,
okay.
And then we'll have the commitment episode. But I go a week into a month of this fast. I am going to talk myself. It starts out small. I'm not going to eat today. And then I might have a chip. And then, or I tell you what, not even a whole chip. I'll eat half of a Cheeto. And the phenomenon of craving kicks in once I get that half a Cheeto, and I'm like, well, I've already ate half a Cheeto. Shit, I might as well. And then boom, next thing you know,
Bag gone.
covered up with Little Debbie's and Bluebell, you know?
Robbing a Frito-Lay truck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that might be a poor example.
And I
'cause we're
have
talking about
that happening right now.
the phenomenon of craving is the phenomenon of craving. And
Yes.
we tell ourselves we're not going to drink, and we're not going to drink for a month, and I'm going to show everybody in my family. And then after a week, it's just like, well, that blank pissed me off. I'm going to have a beer just to settle my nerves.
Yeah, you're going to find a reason.
And once you get that first drink of that little bit of alcohol, the phenomenon of craving kicks in, and you're off to the races. Now, I firmly believe, and I'm not going to test this theory, and my beliefs have nothing to do with AA or the Big Book. I've been sober for 13 years and a few months, and I firmly believe if I take one drink, Matt, to this day, something is going to happen, and I'm going to convince myself, and within a month, maybe two, I'll be back in a bed, not being able to get out. Hopefully, I'll have enough, whatever it is, to go back to treatment, because I just don't want to go back through that. But once that phenomenon of craving kicks in, I can't control my head. I can't control my brain. So I go to AA, and I have people who help me one day at a time with this. No one ever tells me I have to stay sober for a month. You got to stay sober for a month to get a month chip. That's it, a piece of aluminum. No one's going to tell you. All you got to stay sober for is today, right? And sometimes it may even be for an hour or two.
Sure. It was for me early on. A lot of days like that. And that's what it takes. And, you know, if you're out there, and we had this on our minds to talk about today, but, you know, if you're out there, Alcoholics Anonymous is not going to cost you one penny ever. You can go sit in that room forever, and it's not going to cost you a penny. Those people in there, nobody's going to charge you to help you get sober. It's not a doctor. It's not a psychiatrist. These are people who are giving back what they were given, and that's how they get to keep what they have. And give it a shot. Go sit in there and listen to some folks, you know, that have been through this and know how to do it. And
there's nobody that's going to tell you how to stay.
Yeah, not at all.
Nobody going to tell you have
Not
to
at
get
all.
a sponsor. You have to work a step. There's nobody that's going to tell you. There's no leadership in AA. How it works, that part of AA is beyond me, because you have a group of people who are the rowdiest, hell-raisingest folks, done the craziest shit, and they have nobody running the show.
Nope.
We all just kind of stick together and
Just help where needed.
and help when needed, you know. And I'm living proof. Matt's living proof. Jill's living proof. Everybody we've had on this show living proof that if you think you have a problem and you want to stop, that's a big deal. If you don't want to stop, probably wasting some time, right? Especially good drinking time, right? There's another debacle waiting on somebody. But if you want to quit and you find you can't, you don't even have to come in that first day and say, I'm an alcoholic. For some reason, though, we tend to cheer those people that come in on their first day and, my name is so-and-so, and we, you know, hey, thank goodness. Well, you don't even have to do that. Just come in and sit around and listen. And I was a negative Nancy, a naysayer. Not this stuff is the stupidest shit I've ever seen in my life. I drank myself into AA. How am I going to figure out a way out of this? And 45 days into every day, not picking and choosing, every day for 45 days, and nobody works a harder schedule than I do. I'm sorry, you just don't. 45 days into AA, I was wanting to be there. I need to be here. There's something going on here, because I've been 45 days without alcohol, and I really want to come to these meetings. I'm going to figure out a way to get here every day. And for 2 years and 3 days, I came every single day.
Yeah.
Right? And my desire, Jane says this, my desire to stay sober was stronger than my desire to drink. Somehow, we got to get that flipped, right? We got to get the desire to drink flipped with the desire to stay sober. Mm-hmm. Because if you're alcohol drinking or alcohol, any substance, drugs, whatever, is affecting your life, there's a problem. Broken air conditioner. You got an air conditioner problem. Broken car, you got a car problem. Broken life, there's something there that's messing it up, right? And, you know, and that's just the alcohol part. We hadn't even got it. Well, the rest of it's in our other episodes. So, Jill, you look like you got something to add.
I don't.
No,
I
come on.
don't.
The snake killer over there.
Well, yeah, I saw the pictures. I might post those. I don't know. They're kind of violent. I might kind of blur them out. Like
Jill is like I don't know, like a female Crocodile Dundee. You know what I'm saying?
Well, here it is.
Yes. Good day, mate.
Our big announcement is Matt is speaking this Saturday, which is actually going to be yesterday when this episode comes
Yeah,
out.
y'all already missed it if you're listening right now.
But who are you doing this for, Matt?
It's at the Gratitude House in Ruston, and it is for their convention in that part of the world over
Gotcha.
there.
Raising funds for that convention.
Starts at noon. Bring
well, they're not
auctions.
They're going to hear this a day late, but they can always support that cause.
Absolutely.
Because believe me, if they have Matt as a speaker, they definitely need.
They need money. They need help.
They need just.
They got me because I work cheap. You know, that was I was in their budget.
Yeah,
So
but don't show up with a case of beer this time.
yeah, I'm trying not to. You know.
God,
They
can you
said bring
imagine the look
bring-
on everybody's faces?
Oh man, brought the rum cake to the bake sale.
Have y'all been in there where anybody brought alcohol in a meeting? Y'all been a lot longer than me.
I've been into 2 meetings, I believe, with someone had alcohol in a meeting. One was in a cup and one was in a beer bottle. Yeah.
No, but I've worked at a treatment center and someone sent a champagne cake, and me and the CEO went in and took a bite and looked at each other like, what the
Pretty
hell
strong champagne.
are we eating? Yeah, we threw
I
it
had
out.
a dude drank cologne in a rehab I was in.
Well, I hope it was
Breath
a low
smelled
end.
good.
I hope it was a low end cologne. Drinking the good
I don't know. It was the first day I was there. So,
stuff. Well, welcome, Matt. To,
yeah, man.
You want some Calvin Klein?
that was a director.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he's
Got
burping,
a
but it
fifth
smelled
of
good.
Gucci guilty over here, guys.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, I hope we covered a lot. I hope we helped someone or someone heard what we had to say. Got that one announcement. Don't have any more. If we do, grouchandbrainstorm.com is where you can find them. We're always thankful to those who do support the show, so appreciate it. We thank every single listener. We want you to continue to listen. If you have any ideas, drop them on grouchandbrainstorm.com. If you have any complaints or concerns, drop them on grouchandbrainstorm.com. My daughter she'll recover them and get them to me. And I have been mispronouncing her name. I said my new grandbaby's name, and I said it wrong. So I did tell her I would make right with that. I've been saying Ryu, and it's Rayo, like mayo with, R-E-I-G-H, something like that. R-E-I-U-X or something like that. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's Rayo. So his name is Everest Vincent Rayo. That's my grandson, who is now about 9 weeks old.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's a trooper, and he's hanging in there, and we're proud of him, and I'm proud of my daughter because she's jumped back into helping us with this, and to be of service to the program that she saw her dad get sober in. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, so love her bunches and appreciate her bunches, and we love you guys. So keep listening, but for now, we've been here at Rule 62 Studios in sunny Bossier City, Louisiana, and we have been the Grouch and the Brainstorm.